Hello and welcome back to my vlog. This is day 28. Yes, day 28 or video 28. It should be, I should call it really. Um, so it's a Tuesday, which means it is my day off, so to speak. A day off from actual work, not my day off from being a better me and learning and such. No, far from it. Pardon me. So, on my journey of journaling, whilst journaling this morning, I I took a little tip from what's his name, Clark Kegley, and he set aside like uh, 5 questions or 5 prompts that you can use for journaling to essentially improve yourself. You know, I suppose to help with journaling as well. And one of the questions or one of the points that he mentioned is called weeding. Um, in the same way that you would go and weed your garden to remove weeds from the garden, remove the bad shit and fix it. So what how he lays it out is you define your problem, you write it down in like a little blurb, I suppose, a few sentences, short paragraph, and then from that you summarize your problem in one sentence, and that essentially becomes the title or the title prompt for your what you're going to write down for your journal for that day, your journal entry. And then you've got your title, you've got your introduction, and then you start exploring the problem a bit more as you start writing. You basically any thought that comes up relative to the problem that you've just identified, you carry on exploring it, and naturally you end up finding a possible solution, or maybe you jump on a thought train that could lead you to a solution. And I found this the case for me to be within let's see, how probably within 2 or 3 sentences of starting to explore why this particular problem. I'm not going to go into details on the problem because I think that could make for a separate dedicated video altogether on healthy eating and nutrition. But yeah, I very quickly found what I perceive to be possibly a solution or a workaround or a point for improvement that I could act on. So I finished it off with another prompt essentially for doing some research, in that I figured that my problem is dopamine related, in that I attach the act of doing it. So in this case, the problem I outlined is that I tend to overeat a lot easily. Like I can be full to the brim. I can have food coming out my eyeballs, and I will still go back for more because I get that much joy from eating food, and that's why I've always been big throughout my entire life. So then at the end of it, I figured, because I get all this joy from eating, and obviously dopamine is like kind of or perceived to be the drug of joy, the hormone of joy, the thing that makes you feel good. So then I go and research how to essentially do a dopamine reset, or like a dopamine detox. And there's an interview on Impact Theory with Dr. Andrew Huberman, and he's a neuroscientist, so he knows a lot about what goes on in the brain, hormone releases, etc. And from watching this interview, I very quickly learned that dopamine is not released as a result of doing something that you enjoy. No. So dopamine is, or dopamine levels raise when you're in pursuit. I've worded that wrong. So dopamine levels are responsible for causing that motivation, for making you want to pursue something. So it's quite the opposite. So quite the opposite of how I perceived it to be. So I thought it's a case of you do something enjoyable, dopamine goes up. But no, your dopamine levels start raising when you start thinking, or you start getting excited about doing something or achieving a goal. You start thinking about a goal and how you're going to get there, and that's when dopamine levels start going up, and you get motivated to, go and get it, essentially. And then you do the pleasurable thing, or for me in this instance, eating something like fast food or shit food, basically, and then you have a crash, and then you feel shit. And I've noticed quite a few times in the past where if I eat food that, fast food especially, and the fact that it's fast, and you didn't have to make it, you feel extra shit afterwards because you didn't have to make it. So one of the points that he points out, one of the key points that he mentions is that if you experience pleasure without that requirement for the pursuit, or without the pursuit for that pleasure, i.e. the steps taken to naturally obtain the pleasure, that slowly destroys your brain. It completely skews and screws up your dopamine receptors and just everything in your brain. So using the fast food example to explain what I mean, or what he means there, is fast food. Okay, so you've got a little bit of a craving for food, or you're hungry, yeah? So naturally, your dopamine levels start raising up because you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get some food. And the problem is that food arrives instantly. It's there within minutes, and then you scoff your face, and the dopamine shoots up briefly, and then you've experienced what the dopamine was getting you all excited for, and it's gone in an instant, and then it crashes. So the dopamine works in a cyclical form, in that where your baseline is, the dopamine spike is followed by a trough that's equally negative to the spike, if that makes sense. Or it can be lower, can be higher, whatever. But yeah, so if that's your baseline, there's your spike up there. When you hit the trough, the lows, it actually goes below baseline here. So if I was editing this video, I'd put a graphic on the screen, but if you think of it like a graph, there's baseline, and yeah, it goes up, it has to come back down. Now the difference is, if you're really hungry and you start getting excited about food, dopamine starts going up, and say you spend 30-40 minutes preparing a brilliant meal, like something very tasty, even if it's just a sandwich, but say you take your time and care and attention and love into making this sandwich or whatever it is, and then you finally eat it, and you take your time eating it, and by the time you're done, you feel you carry on feeling good, or at least you don't feel as shit as quickly as you would do after eating fast food. That's purely because you've allowed your dopamine levels to essentially play out the game, play out the long game. You're letting it naturally go up to a level, when it's at its peak. That's when you start enjoying what it is that you've been looking forward to. And when it comes back down, you're probably still in that phase of enjoying what it is that you've been looking forward to, so it doesn't come down as hard, as fast. Obviously, it doesn't act as a square wave, it is sloped. And the less you can spike the dopamine, so having to make your food, the physical act of having to take the time of cooking the food compared to just ordering and receiving it, it's going to spike it less, which means it's going to dive down less, so it'll be in the negative, not as much. I've really explained that in the worst possible way, but I was taking some notes whilst watching this video, because that's another thing that who was it? I can't remember. Oh yeah, that was another thing that Clark Kegley said. He's transpired to be a very clever fella. So one of the points he makes is, this is for like coaching yourself. If you want to go on the path of self-improvement, one thing you have to do when you're consuming, say, what would otherwise be helpful information, but you forget it immediately. I've been terrible at this in the past, where I would watch, say, a Gary Vee video on marketing, and because I'm watching that video and there's so much information in there, I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, I'm being productive because I'm taking in all this information, and it's going to make me a better person at doing task X, Y or Z or whatever the fuck. And 5 minutes after stopping watching the video, I've forgotten everything. But you don't think of it that way. You're tying the experience to this feeling of, oh yeah, I've been productive. Oh yeah, I've done something good. You don't realize that the actual information, the important part, has just vanished. So an important thing that Clark says or mentions and has opened my eyes to, and I've practicing this on one video so far, I'm amazed at how much more information I've retained. When you're watching educational or informational videos or reading something, take notes. You know, they don't have to be clean cut university level notes. Grab a piece of paper, grab a notebook, grab a laptop, grab a phone, whatever. As long as you're taking notes, and everything that stands out, you know, circle it on paper, or put an arrow next to it, or put a star next to it. Make sure it stands out, because if it stands out, say on the notepad where you're taking the notes, it's going to stand out in your mind as well. It's going to be ingrained in your mind. The fact that you're listening to something, you're then writing it down and you're reading it back, that's 3 avenues or 3 routes into your brain to help you remember useful information. So yeah, went off on a complete different tangent there. I'm sorry today's video is a bit longer than the other ones have been, but this has genuinely got me excited. I'm looking forward to watching more videos and discovering more, not just what I've been missing out on. Maybe I should go back from my YouTube watch history and actually rewatch all of the videos that I've watched over the last 3 or 4 years, and just actually take in the information, take some notes, and I think that's definitely going to help me on the path of taking action. So yeah, I'm all out of breath now. Anyway, it's coming up to 1 o'clock. It's my lunchtime. Actually, it's my breakfast time. I haven't eaten yet today because, you know, time restricted eating. It's good for the gut, but that'll be another video or another topic for another video another day. Anyway, this is day 28. Pardon me. Over and out. I will see you again tomorrow for the day 29 video, or video 29. So until then, take care.